Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Food, Wine, and Travel Show, where we go across country and travel the world with members of the International Food, Wine, Travel Writers Association. Let's go. Welcome, everybody. You know we love our second Friday Food, Wine, and Travel Show with the International Food, Wine, Travel Writers Association, because we get to chat with travel writers and find out where their last destination was. And they take us there virtually. And today we're welcoming back Kathleen Walls. She's a travel writer, photographer, author as well. And she's going to tell us about her adventures in Kansas. In fact, we're focusing on odd Kansas, like oddities and oddness. I don't know if there's such a word as oddness, but I'm making that one up. But she went through Kansas. She's going to be back on one of our other shows too, talking about the prairies out there. But today we're going to oddities, which is one of our favorite things to talk about on the show. And I encourage you to go to the travel website for Kansas. It is travelks.com. Keep up with Katie at katiewalls.com. That's her author website. And her travel blog is americanroads.net. And her article about the oddities with some photos that show you all kinds of things from monsters to giant balls of twine. That is up on blendradioandtv.com. All these links I'm talking about are listed from the episode notes. So whether you're listening on Apple or watching on YouTube, look in the show description and you will see the links and also the link to IFTWA, which is the International Food, Wine, Travel Writers Association. You can go to iftwa.org. That is IFWTWA.org. Whew, that was a mouthful. Was that oddness? Oddities?
That was odd.
It was odd. Why
it was
not?
odd. And so was Kansas.
Kansas is that's I like Kansas and
I
like
do
prairies.
too. It has some of the most weird, unusual, the last thing on earth you'd expect. I mean, we started this trip with the Wizard of Oz Museum, the Oz Museum, actually. Can't get any weirder than the Wizard of Oz, can you?
Well, and I don't know, because you've got quite a good list in this article.
Yeah, they just get kind of weird. It's hard to say which is the weirdest. Well, I guess if I had to pick, the weirdest feeling for me was going down into the missile silo.
That's weird.
That is weird. And it's amazing what the gentleman who's redoing it, what he's trying to do. This was an actual missile silo. It stored an Atlas missile, which had Russia attacked us, we would have retaliated with these. And one explosion from one Atlas missile that was stored in this very place would have been bigger than the bombs that landed in Japan after the war. So you can imagine the feeling in that it feels like a museum. It's not. It's he's converted the top portion of it, which is where their kitchen and bathroom and medical supplies were kept. He's converted that into an Airbnb apartment.
Wow.
And when you go down to the bottom level, what he's planning for that is like a school type program where people would learn basically to live on other planets, which kind of looks like it's coming. So that gets about as weird as you get. And then when you're on that lower level, there's a little tunnel, almost like walking through a drain pipe big enough to stand up in, just barely. And you look down, and that is the actual place where the Atlas missile sat. And you look up, and you can see when you're up, I'm getting ahead of myself, when you're above ground before you go down into the missile silo, you can look, there's a big circle there. This would have opened had the missile been fired. When you're down underneath, you see the metal parts of this that actually would have opened, but fortunately never had to. And the missile, of course, is no longer there. But that really hit me for the weirdest of any place on there.
It's kind of creepy. And a silo itself, I mean, you have silos all over the Midwest because they actually store silos. So it's kind of interesting so did they choose that for, like, was it hidden by being in a silo, or missiles actually kept in silos?
The thing with that one, he kind of fell in love with the idea, I guess, and he bought the silo. And he's converting. The outside is going to it's already an RV park, but he doesn't have the hookups yet. But it's coming as a full-fledged RV park, and it's beautiful up there. Then when you go down below ground, it's just strange. It's just the weirdest feeling, like you're standing in a science fiction story.
I've watched people renovate silos into homes, like old
Uh-huh. Well, there's
silos.
some that's been made into big condos and things. And
Why not?
he wants his to be available to the general public who wants to come
Mm.
there.
There's something weird about going underground if it's not like a natural cave. And
Right.
there was a underground hospital we went to in Guernsey in the Channel Islands between England and France. So
Hmm.
Guernsey, Sark, and Herm, those islands were occupied by the Nazis. And so we went into this underground hospital, and it was used as a hospital during the occupation, and
Hmm.
they still had the beds in there. There
Oh,
was water leaking down the walls because this is a wall. It's under, like, partially underground. It's weird. And there's mold, and well, not mold, but moss and lichen growing on the walls. It was one of the creepiest. And I've been in, just about every castle you can imagine in the United Kingdom,
mhm.
in Scotland, England, and Wales. And I'd go into the dungeons, as a little girl, and that
Yeah.
freaked me out. Going into the prison side of it, the jails, and where you saw the execution chambers and stuff like that. That kind of freaked me out as a kid.
The
But
Tower of
this had
London
that
is the
feeling.
one I would like to see. The dungeon.
Oh,
That would be creepy, I think. But being underground is even creepier in a way. I mean, because you're thinking all that earth up above you.
yeah, because we're above Earth people. We're not, you know, we
Yeah.
don't burrow.
We're not
But
designed to live underground.
I know they always say that we're going to have underground cities sometime, and I'm not into it. No,
Well,
at
you
that
think
point,
if we
tick me
do
off.
live on other planets, if there's not enough atmosphere, they'd have to either go underground and condition it or build a dome. I used to be
I'm
a big
out.
science fiction fan back in my teen years. I lived
Yeah,
on
yeah.
science fiction
But I
books.
think, well, that's what we're always talking about, right? Is these other universes, these other worlds. And, that's what I always wonder about all these utopian societies across our country is like, it was a nut. What were they, what was so bad at that time that they decided we need a new kind of society? That's fascinating to me. But yeah, this kind of thing going underground, it's like when the people do live underground. There are people who, you
In New
know,
York, in the tunnels, I've heard. I've never seen this, but the central station below the subways, there's all sorts of unused tunnels, and there these people, mole people, they call themselves, that live, homeless and live down, make their homes underneath there.
yeah,
I don't
see,
think I
that's
could handle that.
no, they because yeah. All right, now you freaked me out.
Well,
You freaked me out.
I can freak you out a little more. The
Oh,
the auditorium. Well, you can't call it auditorium anymore. He's called it the Igor Curiosity and Monster
oh,
Museum.
that's cool. I want to go and do that.
Definitely weird. And he's got all sorts of really strange things. The two strangest, there's a skeleton in a glass case in there, and he says it's Frankenstein's skeleton. And then there's a piece of mummified creature that's supposed to be a mummy of a Bigfoot. I'm not sure if I believe him,
I
but
don't
it's
believe
definitely
either one. You're right.
it's definitely worth seeing. And one of the really cutesy things about, how hunters always put heads of animals on the wall. Well, instead of heads, he's got the tails. There's even a cat up there.
Oh
There's a
no, that's
donkey.
weird.
There's a cat. There's a tail mounted on the wall. I didn't ask him how they ended up being put up
No,
there. I don't think I wanted to know that.
I don't want to know. But pin the tail on the donkey. That's kind of odd. You know
And
what I
the duck
mean?
is up there. Yes, and it was a full size one. And of course, he has all sorts of little odd things in there. I mean, there's just almost more than you can get around to looking at, and
Mm.
little things all buried around the place.
Tell us about the toilet.
Oh, now that's another weird one. When you approach the toilet, you're coming up there on a say pathway, regular cement sidewalk pathway. But if you look up where the pathway is coming from, there's a sculpture of a roll of toilet paper. And it's unrolled, and that makes the pathway. And then when you get to the door of the bathrooms, which are really public bathrooms for use, it's a little tiny town, and they didn't have public restrooms, so they decided they'd make art out of it while they were doing it. And when you go up to it, it's made like a giant toilet tank. And in the front of the toilet tank, there's something that looks like a toilet bowl seat cover. And you open those doors and walk in, and each of the bathrooms to each side, men's and women's, are decorated with murals. The women's mostly have like little doll heads and teacups, more feminine things. And the men's side has got little tiny miniature cars were the ones that really caught my eye. Like the kids used to collect the little
Yeah, yeah.
just a whole circle mural made of those. There's a jugs that look like moonshine jugs, a John Deere tractor, all sorts of little things, creating a mosaic. The whole entire wall of the bathrooms, all of them are covered with this mosaic. And that's kind of
Wow.
weird. Then just on the outside of the museum, there's what they call the fork art. And each of the things is made like either a table fork or a pitchfork or something from that. And it's all maintained by the Green Art Museum there. And
Oh,
the
wow.
art,
So this is where is this? This is
this is in Lucas.
Lucas. Lucas.
Lucas has got the weirdest whole city. I mean, the whole city of Lucas is kind of focused on that. And the it's a grassroots art center is the name of the building. The for want of a better word, the major entity that focuses, and they manage the bathroom. They also have the gardens, and then they have several homes that are you can walk over to the Florence Steeple House and walk through that. And the art in there is all from everything's green. The grassroots means recycled. Everything has to have been
Wow.
recycled art, and the museum downtown is all recycled art. The house
Wow.
is really strange. Everything in the house, when you walk in, you're like the inside of a tinfoil cabinet.
That
The
is
wall,
weird. That
ceilings,
is.
everything or look like tinfoil. Some of it is that insulation that has a tinfoil look to it. And that's pretty weird.
Uh,
And then right in the same town in Lucas, but not affiliated with the art museum, is the Garden of Eden. And the guy who created the Garden of Eden, he was a bit weird himself. One of
mhm.
the kind of maybe for me the weirdest thing, when he was 82, I believe, somewhere in his 80s, his first wife had died. He married his second wife, who was in her 20s, and they managed to have two children. And when he
Wow.
died, he wanted his body to remain on the premise. He also had his first wife there's a mausoleum, which is sort of like a piece of art. And you can walk up to the mausoleum and it's your choice. You can go in and look if you want, or you don't have to if you don't. If you're kind of squeamish or you just had lunch, you might not want to look. But anyway, his body is in a glass tomb in there, and you can look in and
Oh, cool. Well, I want to
it's
see. So
definitely
you,
about as weird as you can
well,
get.
is it kind of, did you go look?
Yes, I went and looked. I
Okay,
like
so
weird. I had to go
I mean
look.
too. I mean, so is it like a
Yeah.
museum? I'm not
No,
like a
the
mummy, like a
mausoleum
mummy.
is really like you would be in a real mausoleum. It's a pyramid shaped building, and his tomb is right as soon as you walk in the door,
But
you're
you can
next.
see his body in the
Oh, you
tomb.
can see what's
So
left of him. And remember,
okay,
he's a Civil War veteran. He died quite a few years
but
back.
okay,
So
so is it embalmed, right? So is
he
it
was
still
embalmed, but it's really all is a skeleton, and then there's some hair, and his clothing
oh,
held
cool.
the clothing held up better than the flesh did. There's no flesh left, it's just
Oh,
bone.
that's freaky. I've
But
always wanted to know what happens under we're back underground again, right? But this
no,
guy's not underground. So this is
no,
fascinating.
he's a mausoleum above ground. And he was very much of a showman, and he did this on purpose. And his art is focused is a kind of a political sentiment about how people um taking from the poor, taking the money, the poor people's money. And he's got politicians and preachers and everything like that in cement art. All of the art is done in cement. And
That's
it's sort of,
amazing.
like the Hank Jr. song about
Yeah.
the preacher says, send your money to God, but he gives you his address. It's kind of like,
Well, that see, I love that. And to me, somebody was actually just telling us to go to the Garden of Eden. I'm like, well, Katie did it, but we're gonna
oh,
have to
yeah,
go. I want to
well,
go to all these.
definitely go in the mausoleum. I mean, if you're
Oh
going to go
yeah.
see it, you want to see the mausoleum.
I mean,
And
I've
his
seen dead bodies before, but I want to see what happens
Well, this is a very
when
old
they
dead body. I mean, I've been to funerals and wakes, but this is
so he's
this dead
past
body.
the weekend at Bernie's thing where they're just propping him up and taking him around in the movie, The Dead Guy. I don't know if you've seen that movie, The Weekend at Bernie's, but they kept propping up dead Bernie and taking him
I
around places. It was
somehow
pretty,
missed
it's,
that one.
oh, you should watch it. It's funny. It's silly, but silly is good. But no, I know that we all have that curiosity. Well, maybe not everyone, but
Yeah,
that curiosity. But let's go back to the world's largest belt buckle. Seriously, this is kind of a new oddity,
yeah,
isn't it?
that's the newest one in Kansas. It's a replica of a real belt buckle. It's pretty big. Let's see, it's how big was it actually? Uh,
Well, I have it right here in your
yeah,
article. 19
right,
feet, 10.5 inches wide, and 13 feet by 11.25 inches tall.
right. Yeah,
That's
that's
pretty
it.
darn big. And
That's
so
pretty big.
it's in Abilene, Texas. So not Abilene, Texas, Abilene, Kansas.
Abilene,
So,
Kansas. Oh, yes.
so they have a cowboy art trail. That's pretty cool to do.
Yes, and I didn't get to follow that. That's something that they're working on. I did get to the Eisenhower Museum, which of course really
Oh,
it's weird, but it's really worth seeing if you're up there. Um,
I want to go. I went to his farm. Anson and I went to his
I have
farm
not
by
been to the
Gettysburg.
farm, but
Oh,
one
I
of
want
the
to live on the
earliest things
farm.
I remember from politics was I like Ike buttons. Of course, I was way too young to vote, but
Well,
I always,
Eisenhower was a hero in World War II.
yeah,
I mean, he really was.
yes. And the thing I liked about him the most, when D-Day was coming along and he decided to go with it, a lot of his advisors said, "Oh no, the weather may be too bad. It doesn't look like it's the right day." But he knew the longer he waited, the more chance there was of the secret leaking out.
Mhm.
And the night before, he wrote a letter taking full blame. He said, "Should something go wrong, it's my fault, mine alone, no one else's." And
Integrity.
how many politicians would do that today? Uh,
Don't start me. Don't. We're gonna behave.
yeah,
Talk.
we're
Well,
on
listen.
oddities.
Politics could be an oddity. I mean, it
It's
really
definitely,
is. I
yeah.
mean, at this
Well,
point of the
he
game,
would
it
be an
is.
oddity today for just being honest.
I know.
Oh.
Oh, there. Oh, good one. Well done.
and
I like
and
that.
giving us speaking of oddities, this is kind of getting away from Kansas, but I was in Little Rock. They have a
Oh, yeah.
T-shirt up there, "Join the Capone Party,"
Oh,
where
cool.
you if you have to vote for a crook, vote for Capone.
That's funny. I love
I
Little
had to
Rock,
buy. I don't usually buy T-shirts from
but
museums, but the
but
Gangster Museum in Little Rock, I had to
oh,
buy
you
that one.
got to go to the gangster. We didn't get when
Right.
we were there. Were we still in COVID? But we had a ball in Little Rock. I had no idea I was going to love. I love Arkansas. I
Not
truly.
Little
And
Rock.
did
I'm
you?
sorry, Hot Springs.
Oh,
No,
Hot Springs. That's
Hot
what
Springs.
that's what I
Hot
was
Springs.
going. Hot
Yeah,
Springs.
the Gangster
Hot
Museum.
Springs is awesome. It's one of our. We're going to be there in a month. We'll be there.
Oh, well, do make sure you get to see the Gangster Museum.
We haven't done that yet, so we're going to be at
Yeah.
Tiffany's Bed and Breakfast again out in Bismarck, and I think you were on a show with them actually, and it is absolutely it's a nature destination. It is
Yeah.
you're only 20 miles away, but yeah, Hot Springs has some insane history to it. I mean, but
Yeah.
anyway, let's go
Well,
back
the
to Kansas.
gangsters, I had not realized the gangster connection. Yeah, we're getting off of the odd ones.
I know, but the baseball and the gangsters all went anyway. That's a whole and what
Yeah,
went
we
down
could do a whole other
in the hot
show on that
springs.
one.
Oh man, don't start me on art. I love Arkansas and our friends. Our friends at the at Tiffany's Bed and Breakfast. So her history is Kansas. That's her roots. So that's kind of interesting. So, but so I'm tying them together. How about that?
Okay. Well, another odd is the world's largest ball of twine. And
That I've been wanting to see.
that is really, really neat. It's so big. They said when they first started, they've had to rebuild the shelter that's over it a couple of times because it kept getting bigger. And they let us take the lady that's there, Linda Clover, and her nickname is the Belle of the Ball. And
Oh,
and she doesn't look like a Southern belle. She's a lady around my age and really sweet person. She brought some twine with her, and she let us all take twine and wrap it around the ball. And so it keeps getting bigger. But as
oh,
of September '09, it was 19,000 pounds and
oh,
still growing. And
wow.
it's 7 million something feet long. I don't know how they tell how long it is because, when you keep wrapping that twine in it.
Oh man, this is so cool. I love this
Actually, by
kind of.
now it weighs over 26,000 pounds.
Are you
So,
kidding me? That's huge.
no, that's a big ball of twine. And it's
Mm.
right down the street from the Igor's Curiosity and Monster
Oh,
Museum.
cool. So when you go, because everybody loves these roadside attractions. Come on, it
Mhm.
makes road tripping fun. This is the ultimate way to road trip, right? Is to go and pull over, have some fun.
Right.
Don't
And
stay in the
that's
car the whole
what's
time.
so neat. Little towns that really you wouldn't think of as a tourist destination, but when they've got something like this, people are going to come from all over the world to see it.
And Kansas, I find Kansas amazing. Like when we were in Dodge City area, there's this huge
I love
steer.
Dodge City.
We didn't
I
get to
learned
spend the amount of
something
time we
there.
wanted.
Yeah.
Oh,
The everybody knew, Marshall Earp was kind of the one for the the movie, the show, the gun, what was the big gun rocks? Oh boy, my brain went dead for a minute there. The movie, the TV show,
Gunsmoke.
Gunsmoke, Marshall Dillon, that he was in.
Hmm.
But I had never realized, but there was a young woman there who had been a nightclub entertainer who ends up getting shot while she's in the mayor's apartment. And the guy who's going to shoot the mayor thinks he's shooting at the mayor, but shoots her instead. And she was kind of the Miss Kitty idea behind that. But yeah,
Wow. I mean,
but
Kansas is cool. It really, and I think it just people need to understand outside of the Midwest. The Midwest will go and move around, but for people who come from outside of the Midwest to Kansas, it is a destination. I know we're going to
absolutely.
talk about the nature part too, but the oddities really help smaller destinations, like you're saying, for people to get out of their car, experience something fun and unique. It is Americana history to have
It
oddities
is.
and these attractions.
And
And the
I
Wizard of
think,
Oz. That people
yeah,
go to Kansas just for that. What
just
was
for
the
that. And
museum like?
that was, I mean, it inspired books and movies and toys, and it's still inspiring things.
Hmm.
And
That be
possibly the reason why it's got all of the odd things, it's and you can go there and see it. It's the geographic center of the lower 48 states.
it's
So you're
amazing.
dead in the middle of the country when
Yeah,
you're
you
there.
went to the actual spot, right?
Uh-huh. Actually, it's claims it's the spot, but if you look it up, they say the spot's really about 2 miles out in the field. But you're
Oh,
pretty close.
okay. So so you got to go to the main, yeah, I know what you mean. Like in South Africa, there's two Cape Points. There's a real
Hmm.
point, and then there's another point where Vasco da Gama landed.
Yeah,
But he didn't land on the tip. Everybody says, "Oh, on the tip of Africa." Well, I've been to the tip of Africa. I've stood there and watched two oceans just crash into each other, which is amazing. But it's like, but here's the real tip because this is where Vasco da Gama landed. But you can't go
right.
traipsing out in people's fields, and you better wear big boots if you do that because
Yeah.
on prairies have snakes and things. But this
That would
history
be
of
interesting when you think about that's where humanity rose from
mhm,
originally.
yeah, I mean, just even the history of like the Santa Fe Trail going through, the
Hmm.
Oregon Trail goes through there. In
Yeah,
Kansas, just homesteaders, so what they went through and then they have intense winters too. So you better have some oddities in there. But tell us a little, oh, and tornadoes. Let's talk about the Wizard of Oz. Going to that museum has got to be on a lot of people's bucket list.
definitely. It's definitely worth seeing. The museum, when you go in, the building itself looks like something from Oz. It's good, the paint job, the colors on it, and everything. It's that green color, um, decorated, and all of the buildings in town are extremely old buildings. And
Mm.
directly across from the Wizard of Oz, if you walk across the street, that's where the yellow brick road is. And it's an archway, an alleyway. And as you walk through it, there's a little Toto sitting in front. And as you walk
Oh,
through the alley, there's all sorts of murals from the Wizard of Oz up there. And then back further down the alley, next to one of the murals, is one of the painted Totos. And the Totos, there's, I believe, 18 or 19 of them all over town.
oh,
And
cool.
like the towns do for their little
Their
iconic animal.
mascot. Yeah.
Right. And each artist decorated it differently. Um, we didn't get to see all of them. There's one right in front of the museum, one just a little bit further down the block. And the whole town just feels like it could have come out of the Wizard of Oz. The
Mm.
buildings are all early 1900s to late 1800s. And the
Wow.
Columbia Theater, which is just down the street, if you're standing looking directly out the Oz Museum and from across the street, and you look to your right, you'll see the old Columbia Theater,
Mm.
which is now doing live performances and stuff. It's an old vaudeville theater. If you look to your left, there's a winery, Oz Winery, and all of the
No way.
wines there, right? They're all named for Wizard of Oz things. I had the squishy wishy. I don't remember now which one it was, and it was a nice sweet wine, really good.
Oh,
And
wow.
the at one time the connection between the whole thing. At one time, the winery had been a hotel in the turn of the century, late 1800s, early 1900s. And this actor who was staying at the hotel, was performing down there at the theater. And he died at the hotel. And his name is Frank. And our guide at the winery was telling us that he's kind of manifested himself a few times there at the winery.
Yeah. Wow. I find that fascinating because we're talking about wine, right? So
Mhm.
we've got Kansas wine is a real deal.
Yeah, and they do have a hybrid wine grape that they grow there that they make wine from. Most of the wine, the
Mm.
grapes come from, but all of the wine is made right there in the distillery, and it all has the Oz names. And of course, the building again, it also is painted to look like
Wizard
something
of
from
Oz.
Wizard of Oz. And when you think about it, I mean, all of these buildings are early 1900s or late 1800 buildings. So, they would be something if you were looking at Kansas when Dorothy was prancing around Kansas, you'd think this was her hometown.
Wow. That's a trip, man. I mean, because it's really something so iconic for everyone. So this is
Mhm.
definitely a road trip bucket list destination. So
Oh, I
and I
mean,
just
from
wanted to
from
what
kids
is the
on up
yeah,
in the
what is the
museum.
uh,
They have so much in the museum. There's the artifacts that the adults would be more interested in, actual artifacts from the movie, the dress that Dorothy wore. And then later on, when they remade the African American version, The Wiz,
mhm.
Diana Ross's dress is in there. There's a big life-size sculpture of the Tin Man. But then as you get further back into the museum, there's some interactive things where the witch does a little thing with
Cool.
it's like a globe of the world, and she forecasts stuff with it. And then there's a curtain where you pull the curtain, and there's the wizard behind the curtain.
Wow. And you got Richard Pryor's script book you said in your article. That's cool.
Yeah, it has tons of stuff and so many of these little things you don't notice. And then
Mm.
there's a gift shop where you can buy a lot of
Oh
things
man, of
for the
course. Yeah,
childhood naturally.
that's
Gotta have
dangerous for
that.
fans.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
gotta have a souvenir.
yeah. So this is in Wamego, Kansas, Wamego.
Waco, Kansas, right? And of
Okay.
course, right next door, if you're hungry, you can go over and get Toto's tacos. The whole town has embraced it.
Oh
I
well,
mean,
yeah, well you should. You should. It
you
makes
kind
sense
of look,
to.
you're looking around to see if you see Dorothy coming.
I love it. So I want to get to also Rock City Park because that's kind of
That's
interesting
a
as well.
that's a weird natural creation. When you look at it, driving up to it, it's huge rocks,
Mm,
round spear-shaped rocks, roughly spear-shaped. They're not perfectly circles, but they're spherical. And the gentleman that was there took the ones that wanted to go on a go-kart ride through there or the back in there to see even more of it. So I got to see quite a bit.
mm,
The uh, rocks were formed originally. The it was Kansas was a sea at one time, and the rocks were formed from compression of fossils and shells.
mhm,
And when they formed, and then when the sea dried up and was gone, of course, the sand that was between them was the easiest thing to blow away. So the sand blew away, leaving the rocks above the ground. And
mm.
it makes for some really weird rock formations. There's one back in there that I rode back to, where there's a tree growing right now. It looks like the formation had been split open. Maybe the roots did it or whatever. But the tree is growing right up against the rock formation,
Wow.
sort
See,
of sheltering it.
I think they're all alive,
And they're just amazing. And
I
they each,
think
of
so.
course, each a different shape. And it's a public park. People can walk through it, ride through it, have a picnic in it, do their
Wow.
thing.
Cool. So, everyone, you got to go to Kansas and go look up oddities and add to them, you know? So I
Oh,
encourage you in the show notes, comment on YouTube, or if you see this on Facebook, comment any oddities that you've seen in Kansas. We want to know because there's probably more.
that's probably a lot that I've missed.
Yeah, I mean, there's always something, and there's ones that aren't even documented half the time, which
Hmm.
I think is interesting too. So, Katie, the International Food Wine Travel Writers Association, that's how we connected originally,
Right.
a few years ago, actually. How long have you been a member, do you think?
About 10 years, maybe a little, probably
Wow.
11 or 12 years by now. It's a great organization. The fellowship, the members, everybody is a sharer. I mean, if you have a question, you're going someplace, oh, do you know a contact person here or there? They'll give you that.
Oh,
We'll share things. And then, of course, they do the press trips, which make it really nice. Um, and then every year they have a convention. And I haven't been to every, I've been to a couple of them. This year is going to be up in New York, in um,
upstate. Yeah, that's to
upstate New
Bend.
York, by near the
Yeah,
Corning Museum in Corning, New York, and I'm going to that. And I've already been accepted for the press trip, the post press trip to the Endless Mountains in Pennsylvania. So when you
sweet.
go to the convention, you also have a chance for a pre and a post press trip. So
Cool. We
it
just
really is well worth the money that you spend as a member.
The Endless
And
Mountains, that's the
and
Laurel
then
Highlands, right? That's the Laurel
right, they
Highlands.
did Laurel Highlands. That's
Hmm.
one of the trips that they're offering this year. I had
Hmm.
been one of the other years when I went up there.
Okay, cool,
So I didn't
cool.
didn't pick that one, but it's just a very, very good organization.
Awesome. Awesome. So everyone, ifwtwa.org is the website for that. Again, all the links are in the show notes, Katie's links, and then also the article link. So you can see the photos of these oddities of Kansas. I feel like we should have it's the oddities of Kansas voice. But
There is so much there that side, and this was just the north central portion that I was getting this time, really. So there's
okay.
all over Kansas. I'm hoping to go back again next year.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks so much, Katie. Always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Well, I always enjoy it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio's Food, Wine, and Travel Show featuring members of the International Food, Wine, Travel Writers Association. We encourage you to visit their website. We say IFTWA, which is ifwtwa.org. You can also follow us at bigblendradio.com. Happy travels, everyone.